What is going on, Nuggets Nation NBA fans? My name is Tom Leuthner. Welcome back to Nuggets Today, presented by Fan Arts. We have some topics to cover here, and the first thing I want to talk about is Aaron Gordon, and I really think that this hasn't been spoken about enough. I think that you look at what happened in the playoffs, the fatigue that Aaron Gordon had dealt with that led to an injury, and he had stated in a post-game interview that he felt that he needed more rest in between games and elongate maybe the playoff series. But just in general, Denver was running with a short rotation last year, which led to fatigue-based injuries, and he had a grade 2 hamstring strain, which was an injury at the time that was stated should have taken Aaron Gordon out for a much longer time than it did. He played through it, and you could tell. I mean, he spoke about it, and you could tell in that last game of the series that in that game 7 that he couldn't really play to what Aaron Gordon was used to playing to this year. And to see the fact that he is putting in so much work this offseason and like in the Hines runs, in his workout videos, he looks 100%. He looks better than that. He looks 110%. He said that this is the best he's ever felt. A guy coming off an injury that realistically should have sidelined him for the rest of the, probably a good amount of the offseason. It didn't matter to him. He is a different kind of breed when it comes to his work ethic and what he's been able to do. Also, happy belated birthday to Aaron. I know that he just celebrated his birthday, I guess 2 days ago at this point. But like I said, this is something that should have probably sidelined him for a good amount of the offseason, and he has been doing nothing but putting in work. Like I said, he said that he feels the best that he's ever felt. He thinks this is, Denver's year to win the championship, and the fact that he is so motivated to continue pushing and working hard on a roster that's built to already win a championship is massive for this Denver organization, is massive for this locker room, the presence that he brings to the team in general. But like I said, I don't think it's talked about enough that he is working through coming back from an injury and looks better than he did in the season when he was probably Denver's second best player the entire season, in my opinion, something I've talked about in the past. So I really, like I said, I think that there needs to be more emphasis on how good Aaron Gordon was and how massive he is for this team, just because he is pushing something. I mean, he got hurt game 6, came back, played game 7, pushed his body, even though he said that he couldn't, you could sort of tell, wasn't able to run, and now he's pushing his body even more and looks way better than he even did in the beginning of last year. So the work that this guy puts in, he is a tremendous player for Denver. And like I said, his mindset, his attitude, the motivation that he has to just be a better player and push for Denver is truly just, it's mesmerizing. You have to love the work that he puts in. Now, this next topic I want to hop into is somebody that I've talked about in the beginning of the offseason. Like I said, a cheap option in the beginning of the offseason when MPJ was still here. If you want more shooters around Jokic, Seth Curry. He's an offensive free agent. We know that. And I think that if you want to look at Denver and move on from the backup point guard spot, which I'm actually going to cover this episode and next episode because that's all we got to talk about right now since Denver hasn't made any more moves. If you want to move on from the point guards, backup point guard, and play through your bigs and your power forwards, which it seems, or small forwards rather, it seems like they're going to try to do that. It seems that they're, like I said, Cam Johnson may be that backup point guard off the bench for Denver. Val and Jokic are going to get more top of the key presence, or top of the key opportunities to make something work from the top of the post. I think that Seth Curry's a guy that you could add on your bench. He's not going to be this massive player that's going to, I don't think this last roster spot is going to be somebody necessarily that's going to win you the championship. I think that the rest of the moves that were made this free agency are going to be the moves that will win you the championship if they do indeed push the championship run. I think that Seth Curry is a guy who can, one, give Julian Strawther the opportunity to be more of the backup point guard role and see if he can excel in doing that. It gives you the opportunity to play Bruce a little bit more at the point guard spot because you have a guy who's a knockdown shooter in Seth Curry. It allows you to still have defensive lineups and have maybe one liability on defense with Seth Curry, but at the same time, it's not going to affect you if you just run the defensive smart. If you're playing a unit with 2 guards and one of the guards isn't somebody who's the biggest offensive threat, maybe you throw Seth Curry into that rotation right there, or that role right there to come out. If you need to mount a comeback and you need to put shooters around Nikola Jokic or Jonas Valanciunas, then you can do that and you can put in Seth, Hardaway, and Strawther at the same time. So, like I said, I think that Seth is a more offensive option. Like, I think that the overabundance at shooting guard is a little, it makes you a little iffy there, but I think that Seth can also push Strother to be that backup one. It gives Bruce the opportunity to be more of a defensive-minded backup one, and let Seth come in and strictly be that, offensive scoring, 3-point shooting, offensive backup, I guess, two guard at that point. So I think that if Denver's looking to make just a cheap pickup, that will another guy who I think should crack the immediate roster spot, it would be Seth. I haven't seen any reports on it. I don't know if that's what they're looking to do. Like I said, it looks like they're going more big man oriented, but I will cover another name next episode, but I'm also going to hop into another name here that could be a potential trade target for Denver. Now, I think that this is a good move, right? And I was doing my research on people that Denver should look into and people that they should have tried to trade for. And I know that they don't have the most trade assets in the world, but I do think that Denver can look to potentially trade for a guy like Jevon Carter. Now, I know that he's not this massive pickup. He's a veteran point guard who can give you legitimate minutes. He's a defensive presence when it comes to being just a pesky defender. He's a guy that wouldn't take much to trade for. Now, he's a Bull. The Bulls are in a spot where they want to get younger. They're going in a direction that I don't think that they're even sure what they want to do right now. They have names like or guys by the names of Kevin Huerter. They have guys like Matas Buzelis. You have a guy like Kobe White, who you may even move on from. You have Ayo Dosunmu, who was talked about in trade talks. You have Vucevic, who they want to move on from. You have Josh Giddey, who you just brought in on an extension. A trade for Jevon Carter would not cost too much. It would cost, if Denver has a tradable second rounder, most likely, and a guy like Hunter Tyson to make contracts work. I think, like I said, who knows what these teams who have older talent would be willing to move on from. Like I said, Hunter Tyson is a younger talent. If they want to bring him in and try to make him a rotational piece, we've seen it done. Look at Jay Huff, for example. Jay Huff is a guy who is in the Denver Nuggets G League, couldn't really crack the rotation for Denver, goes over to, the Grizzlies and makes a name for himself. He was probably going to be the starting big for the Pacers this year if all works out for him. But he's a name who's a guy who he's valuable. He's a valuable player for them. I think it becomes a situational based thing for NBA players. I think NBA players can fit in some places and they can't fit in others. And I think that Hunter Tyson may be able to fit in another rotation where he gets the opportunity. I don't think that opportunity is going to come for him in Denver, unfortunately. So if Denver can make a move like this and get a guy like Jevon Carter, the only thing I think that may be a problem is your backup point, the size at your backup point guard. And that's what I'm going to cover here, the community talk topic. Somebody commented that I hate Jalen Pickett. I don't hate Jalen Pickett. I just think that I would rather see, if Denver's going to push a championship, I don't think this is the time to see if guys have the potential to play in the rotation, unless it's a guy who has shown legitimate potential like Watson, like Strother, and maybe Deron Holmes just because of the big man depth. If Denver's able to bring a backup point guard like Jevon Carter in, or, like Monte Morris, or even Seth Curry, and let Bruce or Strother play the one, so be it. I would rather just live with that than I would with Jalen Pickett. Just because I want to see Denver make the championship run, and I don't think Jalen Pickett's a guy who can be your backup point guard and help them make the championship run. Now, if this was last year's rotation, and you want to give, I think last year was, even with Russ there, was the biggest opportunity for Pickett to get minutes. I don't think it should be this year. I think that this is a year that you're pushing towards a championship run. Last year, you're trying to do the same thing, but if he was that valuable and he had that much potential, he would have been in last year's rotation. So I don't hate him. I would just rather see a vet who's proven off the bench for Denver. A guy like, I know that everybody doesn't like him, but Campaign, if you're able to make the move for Jevon Carter, bring in Jevon Carter, somebody who I've always liked. Like I said, a little bit smaller, so is Pickett, but a pesky defender. He could hit threes here and there. A guy like Seth, maybe. Like, I think that there's better options out there than Pickett, especially with the rotation that Denver can run this year. Anyway, that's all I got for you guys today, Nuggets Nation. I'll have another episode out for you guys tomorrow, but make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. I'll catch you guys tomorrow.